This question today is focused on how we navigate the opinions of others. Yeah, obviously, everyone has an opinion. And these days, people are very vocal about that. This sort of prevalent mood whereby everybody gets a voice, and it's really important that everyone speaks before they think. And they share that. We are beholden to the moods of others. And when they comment and when they have their opinions, it feels like an attack. And many use social media as a form of attack and a form of venting their very often not very well thought out opinion. And in some ways, in some ways that's a good thing, because you could say, well, that's how people grow, by discussing, and they don't often have, some people, the means of having those discussions outside of their little bubble. And social media gives them a way to do that. So in that way, it's a good thing. But it does mean that we are subject to many opinions which previously, pre-social media, we wouldn't have had any idea about. We wouldn't have come into contact with at all. So other people's opinions can be quite disconcerting to know that there is quite a lot of aggressive animosity out there. And this is why so many people reject social media, quite understandably. Now, if, like me, you are in the business of being a teacher and teaching online and trying to spread messages, you use social media as part of your business, and I know some of you do too. And it can be a bit of a minefield out there. So today's live, just to recap, is all about that. It's about navigating the opinions of others and knowing how to manage that. And of course, as ever, we use the guidelines, the principles of Stoicism as a guide. And we look at references from classic literature, from the classic masters. And today it will be Jane Austen. It will be Epictetus, who was a Stoic philosopher, Seneca. Marcus Aurelius, I think I have a quote from. But it will be predominantly Jane Austen and some of her writing from Pride and Prejudice. And if you listen to Pride and Prejudice on my audiobook, you will know how great a satirist she was. And today is all about satire. So it's fitting we should look at the mistress of satire, Jane Austen herself, for guidance. Jane from Basingstoke says, "It feels like people at work are always talking about me, and I've had enough of it. I never feel like I belong. Sometimes this feeling of dread comes up at the stupidest of times, and it means I can't get involved in things as I'd like to for fear of getting upset or embarrassing myself. What should I do?" So as we know, when we are in a situation where there are other people involved, and in this case it's a work situation, if we are too aware or place too much significance of the opinions of others, and we are in any way anxious about that, these feelings of dread can come and they just attack us without any warning. And as Jane says, at the most ridiculous points in time, when we least expect it and when we least need it. And at that point, all we want to do is run away. So she's asking for some guidance, some way to deal with this. And today, we are going to look at some quotes from the Stoic philosophers. And the reason the reason I am connecting the Stoic philosophers with the literature I read is because the Bluestocking group, which was Regency times, the Bluestocking group, a group of intellectual women and some men, got together, and one of those members was Elizabeth Carter, and she was the first person ever to translate and publish a complete English translation of the works of Stoic philosopher Epictetus. That was 1758 she did that. So she's a trailblazer, and obviously the women, the literary masters who wrote during her time and after, were influenced massively by this, because not only was this the first translation, but it was by a woman. So what a feat. Of course, women of the time were, the expectation of women at the time, they were to be very much an aesthetic addition to a man. That was it. They were there to entertain and please men. That's why they existed, and then eventually have children. So this huge endeavour was it was a trailblazing act, and we have the likes of the Jane Austen, the Brontes, and so on. Women who Montgomery, Alcott, women who wrote afterwards were really influenced by this. And they used these ideas, these Stoic ideas, in their work and as a way of navigating their own lives within the patriarchy. Okay? And it's not spoken about enough, and this is why I'm speaking about it, but it's not spoken about enough because there are not enough records kept of women from those times. The majority of the records kept are either letters, personal letters, and then when Jane Austen wrote, from then on we started getting a lot more, women started getting a lot more literary attention. But of course, they weren't allowed to publish before then. So the mere act that they tried to be published was another feat of amazing. Okay, so let's go back to the question. And the question is, how do I navigate the opinions of others? What happens is, they say something, makes me feel terrible, I lose all of my courage, and I just want to run away. Basically, that's what Jane is saying. Jane from Basingstoke. Okay, Marcus Aurelius said, a Stoic philosopher said, "It never ceases to amaze me," he said, "we all love ourselves more than other people, but we care more about their opinion than our own." And as Stoics, the idea is we only concern ourselves with what is in our control. And those opinions of others are not in our control. Now, that's easier said than done, because it still affects us, especially if we feel anxious. But at that point, we have to say, is there anything I can do that will stop them doing that? And once we accept there is not, we must let it go. Let's have a look at the attitude of Mr. Bennet in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Mr. Bennet is Elizabeth Bennet's father, and he satirically says, "For what do we live but to make sport for our neighbours and laugh at them in our turn?" For what do we live but to make sport for our neighbours and laugh at them in our turn? He's acknowledging here the ridiculousness of it. He's shrugging off this indecision and this tempestuous nature of others. He's shrugging off the silliness, the ridiculousness of himself. And he is saying, understand, as long as you're aiming to be your higher self, all the rest is immaterial. We are ridiculous. They are ridiculous. Let's laugh it off. It's outside of our circle of control. There's nothing we can do about that. It's ridiculous. Epictetus says, who are those people by whom you wish to be admired? Are they not these whom you are in the habit of saying they're mad? What then do you wish to be admired by the mad? And this is the question. Is Jane in Basingstoke going to work and wishing to be admired by these people who make ridiculous remarks, who make ill-informed judgments about her? Why would she want them to admire her if she doesn't admire their opinion herself? It's ridiculous. So, when we're finding ourselves concerned with the opinions of others, we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do? Are we going to do what is wise or what others approve of? Am I going to carry on being me, or am I going to adjust myself according to their opinion? The opinions of those that are ridiculous. Am I going to do what is just, or am I going to do what other people approve of? Am I going to stick to my virtues, my principles, everything that I protect within my inner citadel, or am I going to do what they approve of? Am I going to do what's moderate? Because inside my inner citadel, I have it all figured out. And I'm quite happy with myself in that little bubble. So am I going to stick to that? Am I just going to stick to this life of reason, or am I going to do what you approve of? Am I going to do what's courageous, which is be brave and stick to my principles, or am I going to do what you approve of? And what Stoic philosophy says is we do our best because that is better than seeking approval. And why do we want approval? If we seek approval, that makes us susceptible to flattery. And if we're susceptible to flattery, that leaves us open to manipulation. Because most times, if others see that their approval holds some weight over our actions, that gives us the power to shape our behaviour. They know they can adapt our behaviour by their liking, approving or disapproving our behaviour. And then as they're manipulating us, we're moving away from the principles that are guiding our life. So again, to go back to this Stoic philosophy, we have a dichotomy of control. Within our control, within our circle of control, is everything we can control. And they are our thoughts, our actions, our principles, our morals. Everything external to that is beyond our control. So if we are seeking approval externally, we are seeking approval from something that is ever-changing. We can never satiate that desire because it is ever-changing. It is beholden to the wants, the needs, the moods of others. It's all about protecting our virtue within this inner citadel. We can't do that if we keep opening the gates and letting it all in. We are aiming to do what's virtuous, what is true to ourselves, whether it brings flattery or disapproval. And that's where the Stoic principle of courage comes in, because you have to be brave. You have to be brave to stick with who you are, no matter what. And it sounds obvious. It sounds so obvious, doesn't it? Because why wouldn't I just do what I think? Especially as we get older as women, it's a case of, well, I'm not going to even consider doing anything else. But there are moments, even when you mature and realise, I don't seek the approval of others. There are moments when the inner citadel is attacked, is under attack. It's a legion, it's an army, and they're coming for us all the time. All the time. It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter which position in life you are, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, how self-confident you are. The attack is on. And it doesn't matter if you hide yourself away, it's still on. Because there are people close to you who don't realise you're doing it. They need to manipulate you because they don't have an understanding of who they are. So they're looking for a way in. They need you to seek their approval. They hold themselves in a position where you need something from them. And the answer is not to need anything. And that's very difficult, because with any relationship, there's going to be a pull and a push. There's going to be toing and froing. And it's up to us to navigate that. And that's why I like the Stoic philosophy. And that's why when I first learned about it years ago, I thought, wow, this is what I'm doing. And I didn't know there was a name for it. I learned to do this as a matter of self-preservation, but actually there are guidelines, there are lessons that I can learn and I can develop and I can become stronger. And they work. And that's why I call myself a natural born Stoic, because I am doing that, and I think many women are. Over time, you learn to protect yourself. But we still need to practice the lessons every day, because we are under attack. And, as Mr. Bennett quite rightly says, laugh it off. It doesn't need to feel like a threat. We don't need to be overwhelmed by it. But we need to be prepared for it, which is what these lessons are about, preparation. So we need to control our desires, our aversions, our needs. Epictetus said, and this is the philosopher who Elizabeth Carter translated, as long as you control your desires and aversions, there's nothing to worry about. This is your opening statement, your case and your proof. This is your last word and your acquittal. You do the very best that you can, and you intend on carrying on doing that till the end. Because this is the only way. And the external forces you are aware of, at times of weakness, you are more vulnerable to. But you still understand that they are external to your circle of control. So there's nothing you can do about them. If we're seeking approval, we want to be like other people. But why do we want to be like other people? We need to remind ourselves of the Stoic principles at these times. Do we want to do what we believe to be right, or what someone else believes to be right? And people are very good at manipulation. Sometimes people close to us. And they really believe what they believe is right. But we are only manipulated if we allow ourselves to be manipulated. And that means being concerned with their opinions. So we have to shut them out. We have to say to ourselves, that's their opinion. It's not mine. Which is very difficult at times. According to Jane Austen, we are to laugh at ourselves, at the ridiculousness of it. If it were indispensable for me to keep writing and never relax into laughing at myself or other people, she says, I'm sure I should be hung before I'd finished the first chapter. So this is the ultimate in humility, not taking herself too seriously. And we should follow that example. That's the beauty of satire and why Jane Austen is so popular, because she's not taking herself too seriously. She's saying, I realise that I have this endeavour. It's really, really important to me. But if I don't occasionally laugh at the ridiculousness of how serious I take myself, or the ridiculousness of other people's opinions as to whether I should be published, whether what I've written is acceptable or not, then I'm sure I should be hung before I'd finished the first chapter. I wouldn't be able to carry on, is what she's saying. She's registering the importance of protecting her own endeavour. And that's what we're doing at work, all right? Because we work, why? For two reasons: financial and to have a sense of purpose. And for many people, that sense of purpose is held really strong. It's really important to them. And depending on their job, they can have real identity with that. And obviously, the more you work at something, the more you invest in something, the more you hold it dear. But what Austen is saying is, you can still laugh at it from time to time. It's just an endeavour. And other people's opinions on your endeavour, certainly you can laugh at those. So that's the moral of the day, really, is to try not to take things too seriously and to keep a sense of distance when it comes to the opinions of others, and whether they be born of flattery or malice, because either way they're manipulation. If somebody's being malicious, they're trying to manipulate you into stop doing something, and if they're flattering you, they're trying to manipulate you into start doing something. They're still both forms of manipulation, so you have to be very careful. I'm going to talk a little bit now just about this daily Stoic check-ins. It's a little course I'm going to be introducing, and it's going to be a course of weekly check-ins where we are, daily check-ins, where we are asking ourselves little questions about what we're doing, just as a way to trigger accountability to ourselves. They're like a framework for navigating, various challenges that come along with greater equanimity, resilience, purpose. And we are just trying to remind ourselves every day of why we're doing this. For example, one check-in: am I directing my energy towards my actions and thoughts, or am I devoting it to external events and the actions of others? So, for example, I could say today, right, if I were to answer that question, I could say, right, what have I thought about? What have I spent my energy on today? Okay, I've spent quite a lot of energy on organising things, on structuring things, on working, on collating things. So that's good. I have also spent an inordinate amount of time thinking about a conversation I had yesterday about a family member, and it keeps popping into my head. And I haven't checked myself enough on that. I've done that a lot. So this, for me, this question is a call to action. Yes, reflecting on the day, actually, that wasn't the best thing to have done. And then question myself and work out how I can do better tomorrow. If we are interested in any philosophical way of life, if any philosophy that is trying to teach us, as Stoicism does, to protect ourselves and navigate life's challenges, we need to check in with that daily. Now, for those of you that did my journaling course, that was kind of a taster of what's to come. And from the feedback I got, it seems helpful to have that daily check-in, that daily note-taking. So I've got here my journal, and in my journal, every day, I just fill out one page. So I've just got my notes and my little cloud. And my cloud contains a quote. Now, that check-in is me doffing my cap to one of the literary masters. That's what it's doing. It's me saying, remind me, Jane, where am I going wrong? Tell me, Charlotte, what should I do? Because we can't do this alone. Of that I'm certain. And for those of us who spend a lot of time on their own, it's good to have friends. And some of those friends come in the form of the literary masters. You'll never be alone if you have a good book. Famous quote. And that's so true. So these are what these check-ins are all about. Another check-in would be, what am I doing now? Is it within my power to change this? Am I being reactive? Am I reacting to something, or am I being proactive? Am I doing something from a position of choice, from a position of virtue? Or am I reacting and behaving in a way because of the actions of some external force? A check-in might be, am I worrying about things outside of my control? Am I making myself anxious about things that I cannot change? And The ridiculousness of life and the truth of life is you're never ever going to stop learning, and you have to keep working at it. Even when you know the answers, you still have to have that daily check-in. And that's why having a journal, and that's why training yourself, one of the Stoic principles is wisdom, training ourselves, constant learning, constant development, constant checking in, helps us protect everything within our inner citadel, and that is life-saving, and I do not say that lightly. In times of real trial, we have to have something to hold on to. And if we can visualise this citadel and we batten down those hatches and we protect our outer skin, if you like, or the perimeter, daily, we stand a chance of getting through. And that sounds really dramatic. But if we are in any way beholden to anxiety, fear, sorrow, any of those extreme emotions that can overpower us, it is our duty to protect our inner citadel. And it's our duty to learn so that we can continue doing that. It was groundbreaking years ago when I read this quote, and I can't quite remember where it was from, but it was something along the lines of, take a photograph of you as a child and ask yourself this question: would you let them do that? Would you let that happen to them? What would you do if that was happening to them? And it just shifted everything, and I just realised, yes, it's not about selfishness, this is about self-preservation. This is about survival. And that for me is what Stoicism is. It's about survival. It's about putting everything into some manageable context that I can understand. And one of my superpowers is breaking things down, linking things up, and making them accessible to other people. That's part of being a teacher, a successful teacher. Taking lots of different information from all over the place, putting it all together, and delivering it in an accessible way. And make no mistake, I do this for myself. This is the protection of my inner citadel, this work. Because it holds me accountable. My higher self, we're striving to attain our higher self, or working towards that. My higher self dictates that I will make sense of the world and help other people to do that too. And the idea is that with something like Stoicism, it is manageable and understandable to me. And I just think if we carry on with these daily check-ins, if we use the tools that we are learning about in these sessions, from researching ourselves, from listening to literature, we can support ourselves adequately and protect our inner peace, which is what Stoicism is all about.